What's going on, everybody? My name is Ben and welcome back to the bench for a brand new episode of Rivals and Adversaries. We just finished off phase number 1 where we built the Tamiya 148 scale Corsair, and now we're going to go ahead and jump into the next phase, which is phase 2, and we're going to build a brand new model kit. Now Joe just finished his phase 1, and for that he built this one right here, the Eduard 148 scale A6M3 Model 32, and we're going to go ahead now and we're going to take on this kit, see what we can do. However, we're going to be building this boxing right here, and this is the Samurai limited edition dual combo, which actually comes with a Model 32 and a Model 22. My girlfriend picked this up for me for my birthday, and I am super stoked to go ahead and dive into this one. We're going to focus on the 32, but we'll leave the 22 for a rainy day. But I thought we'd go ahead and just kind of show you what's in the box, give you guys a look at all the different schemes we can paint, talk a little bit about what we're planning on doing with our 32, and move on from there. Let's go ahead and open up the box here and check out the parts. So this is a dual combo kit, like I mentioned, so there's going to be enough sprues in here for 2 model kits. So basically everything's going to be doubled, at least as far as I can tell. So 2 sprues of clear, 2 sprues of cockpit, fuselage, instrument panels, all that good stuff. The only thing where we only have 1 sprue is for the wings, and that is 1 sprue for the 32 and 1 sprue for the 22. So let's go and just kind of open up some of these parts, check out the instructions, the decals, all that good stuff, and take a closer look. Now, starting off with the instructions here, guys, this is a beautiful instruction manual. Got a lot of interesting text about the particular Zero, the 22 and the 32, a little bit of history, just a tad though. You could probably find more in a reference book. Got our part breakdowns, then we get into the actual meat and potatoes of the build, parts, pieces, sub-assemblies, and of course, photo etch. Now, the photo etch themselves, there's a lot of parts of this model, and I don't know how many of them I will actually use on the cockpit. If there's a bunch of photo etch, you're never going to see it, then I might just save it for a model where you will see it. Use it for some scratch building or something. So I don't know how much I'm going to use. I'm going to aim to use most of it, but we'll see once we get to that part. Either way, this is going to be a really nice looking cockpit. I know I've seen a couple pictures of what Joe did with his. Absolutely fantastic, beautiful, beautiful parts and details. So I think we're going to be able to jump in there, maybe add some wires or piping just to kind of spice it up just a little bit, and then go with the photo etch and the plastic and see what we can muster with that one. Moving on from there, of course, we have our different wings. We're going to build the 32, so we have the clipped wings. There's also the 22 in here with the rounded wings, but we're going to stick to those clipped wing 32. Now, interestingly enough, all of the control surfaces are separate, so we can actually pose them in any directions that we want, which is kind of cool. One issue I do see though is that we do have a 2-piece cowling, and that can be a little tricky, especially with that being a seam line that runs right down the middle of this cowling. So that could be a little tricky. Moving on, of course, we've got other different parts and pieces for the landing gears, drop tanks. Joe mentioned that these landing gear bays were kind of over-engineered, so I'm going to have to be very careful of that. Then we move on to our different canopies, and we have our aerial as well, so pretty good looking stuff. And then we have our masks. Absolutely beautiful instruction manual, really, really high quality stuff here. Let's go ahead and flip it over and let's check out the different paint schemes that we can go ahead and use for both the 22 and the 32. Starting off here with all the different paint schemes for the Model 32. You notice the very first one here is actually similar to the one I built when I first started building with Joe, when our very first episode of Ben Builds with Joe. And this is actually a little bit different though because it varies in color. Eduard has white on the tail and then black on the fuselage, whereas the Tamiya kit had yellow on the tail and blue on the fuselage. Not sure who's right, who's wrong, but that is a really interesting difference between this one and the Tamiya kit. Moving on, of course, we've got other aircraft that have that really kind of modeled look, which is nice. We have a solid green as well, which would be interesting to go ahead and appreciate in weather. And we just kind of proceed along those lines. We're just going to see basically the green and then that gray, and then the gray with a little bit of green overspray. You'll also notice that some of them are lacking aerials and other ones have the aerial because I heard that they removed some of the radio equipment out of some of these to go ahead and save weight. Kind of interesting little tidbit of information there. Turning over the page, we can get into the Model 22 versions. You can see by the rounded wings, and these are also excellent looking paint schemes. We have our traditional kind of grayish green color, and then we've got our green spray painted splotches and pretty heavy chipping and weathering. This is the one actually I think on the front cover. We've got some different fading effects going on, and honestly, when I go ahead and build the 22, any of these would be pure gold to build. They really would be interesting. Last page, of course, are all our stencils, and yeah, that is the instruction manual. Pretty thick too. Very high quality, beautiful stuff here from Eduard. Let's also get into the parts and pieces here. As you can see, this is the side fuselage here for the A6M3, and you will notice very finely recessed panel lines and a beautiful assortment of rivets. A little bit of internal detailing, not too much, but we actually add a bunch of that in anyway, so it's not big of a deal. And then of course on our cowlings, we have a little bit of flash around the gun openings. Nothing a quick swipe with the jeweler file won't fix, but that is something we will have to go ahead and touch up. Plus with that seam right in the middle, that's going to be a little finicky for sure. In terms of the cockpit, we've got different instrument panels for both photo etch and then also for just regular painting. We've got some beautiful looking details here in the cockpit sidewalls and of course our cockpit floor. That'll look really nice to add in some extra wires there, so stay tuned for that. And of course we have our full engine and then just absolutely beautiful detailing everywhere on this model. Now Joe did mention that the wheelbase were very over-engineered and we actually have multi-part wheelbase, but beautiful amounts of detail, so we'll be very careful with how these go together. Now for the wings as well, you notice the same, very finely recessed panel lines, beautiful rivet detailing, gorgeous plastic here guys. We have our chopped wing there for the 32 and of course our separate control surfaces there. That's going to really take paint nicely. It's got some beautiful fabric detailing and of course the ribbing there on the different fabric covered ailerons. Beautiful parts here for sure. And the clear parts are absolutely gorgeous. Very thin, very transparent. We have different versions for open and closed canopies. We'll have to go ahead and check our references and figure out which ones go to which, but I think we're in really good hands with these and they should take those masks excellently. Moving on, of course, we do have our masks. As you can see, we've got a whole sheet of these Eduard masks for the wheels and the canopy, all that good stuff. So that is something we do have. And then of course we have our photo etch. Now again, just like the plastic parts, these photo etch sets will be doubled. We have one for the 22, one for the 32. We do have painted photo etch parts, which is fantastic. So I'll just give you a quick zoom in here and I'll show you some of the parts and pieces. As you zoom in here for you, you can see some of the control panels are already painted in that Mitsubishi interior green, which is very helpful. I don't know if it will match exactly with my color, but it actually does look really nice. Plus we have seat belts and all the different parts and pieces for the landing gears, and this is going to be a really, really great kit. A lot of parts though. I know what Joe was talking about. A lot of photo etch parts, and of course we have 2 sets, so that's going to be a lot of work. Now moving on here to the decals, these absolutely look awesome. And these are supposed to be very special decals, so we have to get into that in a little bit though. But as you can see, we've got a full set of markings plus a full set of stencils. In fact, we have 2 sets of stencils. Now these decals themselves are actually supposed to be special in the fact that you can remove that carrier film after the decals have been applied and dried. I don't know how that works, but Joe said it's a little tedious, but I am interested in trying it out. So instead of going ahead and painting on the rising suns, we're going to come in there, we're going to try the decals because I want to see what it's like to go ahead and remove that carrier film. Otherwise though, they're absolutely beautifully printed, very vibrant colors, very sharp, crisp details as well, so that is highly appreciated. How they go on, I really don't know, but well, we're gonna give it a try. If you zoom in real quick, you can notice that some of the decals have a little bit of a grainy appearance, but I think that has something to do with the clear carrier film that is able to be removed. Otherwise, I think these are going to go down just perfectly. We have different markings, of course, for the 22. You can see with the white band already painted out, so that's pretty cool. And then all the different unit markings and tail codes. So this should be a really, really comprehensive decal sheet. We can build a lot of different versions with this for sure. And then of course our stencils, same idea. We have a lot of carrier film around each of these stencils, but I think these can be removed as well. So that should kind of cut down on a lot of that shininess around it. Still absolutely beautifully printed for sure. Data plates and all these different labels and whatnot. Cannot wait to give these a try. But that is it for the parts and pieces here in the kit. 1/48 scale dual combo Samurai A6M3 model 32 and 22. I cannot wait to get in and start building up that hamp. Of course though, in order to do that, I gotta have some references because you know, I love my references. So we have one book that we will more than likely be using pretty extensively. This is a book you might have seen here on the channel before because I have used it in the previous build. This is the Osprey modeling series, and this is for the Mitsubishi A6M0. And this will cover a ton of different makes of Zero. So you got everything from the Dash 2 all the way to the Dash 5. You've got the A6M2N float plane, as well as a captured A6M5. Different scales like 1/48th, 1/72nd, even 1/144th. So this is a very, very nice looking book. And I think it should really help with my scratch building and adding in wires and piping and all that good stuff. Now the one drawback is they don't have a completed A6M3 Model 32, but in the back here we've got some awesome pictures of the cockpit. And that's where I want to go ahead and do most of my work. Get you a quick close-up here. You can see all the wires that this gentleman has added. There's a lot of piping on the floors, details and dials and gauges and clusters and wires and all that stuff. This is a great looking cockpit, and it's actually supposed to be for an A6M Model 32, so I could use this as kind of a reference point and really add in some nice looking detail. Plus we've got the color charts in the back here showing all the different colors and where they go and what brands you could use. And we have some real world examples here, and yeah, they're refurbished, so they're a little dubious when it comes to actual true spot on colors. We do have a couple pictures of Rex there in the Pacific Theater, and that does show that nice red oxide primer, so we can use that. And of course color chips keep us on the level for different paints. So this is going to be a really helpful book, probably the one I use the most out of everything I have. And I do have other books of course on the Zero. I've got a lot in digital form, so not only will I be using this modeling guide right here, I'll also have my phone with whatever books I can find online for ebooks, and then of course for pictures from other modelers that are working on this kit as well. So this should be a really fun build. Now talking a little bit about colors here, I do have a couple colors already in the stash. For example, I've got the Mr. Color Mitsubishi Interior Green, and this should be the color to be used for the A6M3 Model 32s. The 32s were only built by Mitsubishi, that's at least as far as I have read online. That being said, we can use this color for the internal cockpit area, which should be absolutely fine. One issue I do have to worry about though is, does it match the photo etch? And I can say that it actually is pretty close. Remember back when I built that MiG-15, remember how off that photo etch set was? This case, we have a pretty decent looking match, which is fantastic. And of course, depending on which version we want to go ahead and paint, we might have to pick up some additional colors. So that's going to be something we need to look into. Maybe I can get some AK paints for that. We also have the kind of yellowish orange color here for the leading edge identification bands. We do have that. And we might have some black and other colors like that as well. But we need to come in here and figure out what version we want to go ahead and paint, and then select the proper colors for that particular version. There are so many cool different schemes that we can paint. I don't know which one I want to build. You know, we have different pros and cons to each of them. I am leaning a little bit more towards this kind of blotchy effect. That's going to be very interesting to try to airbrush, and I don't know if I can do it, but might go ahead and try one of these out. That's going to be very challenging. If I don't go ahead and go with something like that, of course we can go with that gray-green color, which would be just as fine. A couple versions of that, or we can go with a solid color as well. So we have a little bit of work to do. We got to do some research, figure out which version here we can find. It'd be interesting to do something with some green in it, but I could also do something with just that plain old kind of gray-green, kind of tannish color over the entire surface. So I don't know what I want to do yet. I'm still working on that. I'm going to figure that out, but we should have enough to go ahead and jump into the cockpit first and get that all squared away. But that is it for today, guys. Real quick look at our 1/48 scale Samurai Dual Combo Limited Edition A6M3 Model 32 and 22. I am very excited to go ahead and jump in on this one. We're just going to be focusing, like I said, on the Model 32. We're going to save the 22 for a rainy day. I know Joe just finished off his phase 1. He's moving into the Corsair, so make sure to go check out his channel, see what he's got going on with that Corsair. That's going to be a really fun model. I absolutely loved it, so I bet you he has a good time with that one as well. But until next episode, guys, you know the drill. Get out there, get yourself some bench time, have some fun, build something cool. Come on back for episode number 2, where we'll jump into that cockpit and see what we can do with our A6M3 Model 32. Thanks for watching, guys. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you soon.